I know, amazing earnings report from Mara. But the question is, does this earning report justify the dip in Mara to finally be over? Is the dip done? And that's what I want to cover for you guys today. What the possibility of this dip really is being done, and can we be looking at potential upside going forward, right? So before we actually jump into that, guys, I want to go over some interesting, coincidental, but at the same time not coincidental news in the market. So we all know, we had first tariff stuff. Tariffs were boiling. They were cooking in the background, right? So all this tariff stuff, 25% tariffs in the EU, caused the big dip today. Just like this is just causing a whole lot of fear in the markets, right? And not surprised, enough fear pushes the market down. Interest rates potentially going higher causes Wall Street to want to sell. A lot of institutions want to sell, and apparently Bitcoin is classified as a risk on asset, and that got pushed down too, causing Mara to also come down. So tariffs are just like, man, they're taking a toll. I don't know how long this fear is gonna last. I don't think it will last too long. I believe this all should fade away sometime this month in March coming up. March is almost here. It's not this month, but it's coming up real soon. It's just not something that there's no way the fear can last that long when so many great assets are being discounted aggressively. But in the coincidence side of things, at the same time, a little bit not coincidence. We see this a lot. We see prices go up a lot, and then we see negative news. Prices come down a lot, and then we start seeing positive news. Like a lot of analysts out there are just jumping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Emotion is taking over the market, and we are just watching it all happen, right? So now, since Bitcoin has dropped a lot, now you have a bunch of positive news. First, it was negative news, then positive and negative as it's coming down, and now it's down a lot. Positive news. What a big coincidence, right? Like it happens all the time. But this thing right here, right? Key metric shows Bitcoin hasn't peaked, has bullish year ahead. First, it was a lot of like things are repeating, or the bull market could be ending early. The top is in, and now they're completely changing. They're completely changing. I'm not signaling now any specific article writers here, but this one was quite interesting. It's basically talking about the other one here. It shows a little bit more in detail, but now they're becoming a lot more bullish and optimistic on Bitcoin, right? Great, that's how it should be all the time. It's not all the time, but that's how it should be in my opinion. And then you have another article: Bitcoin price at the end of the bull market? Question mark. Analyst shows where we are in the cycle, and it becomes very very bullish. Like this picture right here, you guys probably can't see it too well, but we are like in these bottom stages right here of the of price patterns or whatever during bull markets, and this is the other bull markets, right? So it's like they're expecting the price to repeat, not all the way up, but at least, because it kind of decreases over time, but they're expecting it to go up. So then it's like we're getting all this positive news out. I'm gonna jump into Mara in just a moment right here. Actually, right now. Mara, right? Q4 of 2024, what their earnings actually ended up being. Mara's full year revenue rises 69% to 656.4 million, and they hold 44,893 Bitcoin. For those of you that don't know, this blows consensus out the wall. This earnings report was way better than what was expected. And they're also, they were looking into AI, and they're also, let's see, where was the other one at? There's some people talking about Mara. Mara holding stock spikes over 7% in after hours trading. And if you guys don't know, Mara is a lot of the Bitcoin they mine, they actually hold on to as well. They have they've been handling their finances a lot better than other mining companies. It's not my opinion. You guys can research it. I'm not going to get into it. But they hold a lot of their Bitcoin. And they also don't just hold some of the Bitcoin they mine, but they also go into the spot market and acquire more Bitcoin just like MSTR does. So they are increasing their Bitcoin holdings quite nicely. But the question is, right? is this amazing earnings report enough to bring Mara back up? Well, to better understand this, right, we need to look into Bitcoin because obviously, like, if you guys take a look at Mara, we were wrong stock. We were looking at Mara and we were holding support fairly well. We were starting to use this first fib extension support area as a strong support area. We were starting to trend higher. We started trending up higher. Next thing you know, Bybit hack happens, and then Bitcoin falls. Of course, that's going to pull Mara down aggressively, and it did. Then more tariff news comes out, more fear, more emotion in the market to the negative side. Pulls Bitcoin down, which in turn pulls Mara down as well. So, man, I just, to me, this is amazing. If you guys been watching, you guys already know I'm aggressively buying BitU because I strongly believe, before we actually dive into Mara a little bit more deeper, I strongly believe that if at first you have a strong foundation, a strong floor in a structure being formed, and it is proving itself to be a strong structure, but it gets ruined due to emotional selling, due to fear, and it shouldn't directly tie into Bitcoin because at the end of the day, Bitcoin's a fixed supply and demand is much higher than the amount of Bitcoin released into circulation. So supply and demand is very strong. But when there's enough fear in a relatively new asset that's still being, a lot of people don't really know much about Bitcoin, and it's still growing, it will be considered as a risk on asset, unfortunately. So when it's classified as a risk on asset, just like a lot of growth stocks, a lot of high growth like tech stocks and whatnot, um, it will get pulled down with fear of potential increase in interest rates. Due to a potential increase in inflation. So when you have just emotional fear pulling something down that has been proven to be very stable at a certain level, to me, that's just a clear sign to aggressively accumulate as it keeps falling because it's there's not a strong enough evidence that something that was valued for a while at a certain level and it gets pulled down to emotion will eventually quickly, soon enough, recover back up to that previous level. So we'll see Bitcoin back up into the 90s, back up into the 100Ks, because all of this is emotional fear and it will be corrected soon enough when investors and traders realize that, hey, this is actually not a proper level and everything that happened doesn't justify this dip. And then next thing you know, boom, right? A bunch of buying begins to occur once again. So that's why I'm aggressively looking at Bitcoin. But the question is Bitcoin, is it bottomed? Because depending on what Bitcoin does, that will influence Mara, right? So if we take a look, right? We've been dipping quite a bit. There's still tariff news. This EU 25% tariff news is still fresh. The Canadian tariff stuff, it's not so fresh, but there's still a little bit of fear lingering there, in my opinion. Bitcoin, as it's been coming down, has been creating some imbalance areas that overlap with retracement zones. And then the next drop down, this will be the retracement zone indicating potential resistance. If we can break this, then we can start moving up higher. But there's one very important thing to look at, and that's this trend down is within this supportive area, although the bottom could be in, but we need to be very careful because there is still the potential of this area being maxed out. And that's another like 7 to 8% drop. We've seen areas like this maxed out here, 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 and many times in the past. So it's something that can still very much happen. And as a lot of this fear is still fresh, we can still see potential continuation of selling. But since we are within this area, it is, in my opinion, a strong buying opportunity to accumulate at these discounted levels, because soon enough we will recover, right? Um, the way that influences Mara though is that extra dip in Bitcoin, which may not happen, but it very much could, opens up the path for this area to be filled. This area will be Bitcoin making that aggressive dip lower below 80,000, going into the 70s, could potentially move Mara down into the 10s, maybe even for a short period of time into the 9s. But understanding that just like in Bitcoin, this potential, how do you say, not potential, but how do you say, this emotional move down, this aggressive sell off due to, again, just fear of inflation, then interest rates due to inflation, due to tariffs, and all this fear will eventually fade away. So if at first, just like in Bitcoin, we've been trading at a specific level and showing strength within that level up here, and then it gets pulled down due to all that risk on fear due to tariffs and so on, um, soon enough should be corrected once the fear fades off, and this can last potentially throughout March. So is the bottom in Mara? It depends on Bitcoin. But when you consider the time horizon for how long usually these kinds of fear last, which I think can be 3 to 4 weeks from now, um, it's a great buying opportunity, right? Because any discounts we're seeing in Mara, and we have a strong earnings. Mara has proven to, have a great earnings. They've proven to increase productivity. They're holding more Bitcoin. Their balance sheets keeps increasing. So when you tie that into the underlying asset that they are focused on, and at the same time focusing on these structures, we know that once Bitcoin eventually recovers, because this dip isn't something that should have happened in the first place, fear will go away and things will go back to normal. Once that happens, we can easily see Mara trading once again above this long-term support line, ascending support line that has been holding for a very long time, and it was going to hold before all the fear came up. So if you consider this to be, again, all my opinion, a great buying opportunity, which I think it is, then it's a great idea to begin accumulating, while at the same time understanding that if Bitcoin does max out that red area that it's in, we can see Mara trading within this range right here. But again, if you have a long enough time horizon to accumulate and hold throughout the fear, and again, tariffs aren't forever. They always get negotiated. They get fixed eventually. This happened in the past, and it's not something that's going to last forever. So if you can accumulate at discounted prices, enjoy this very low cost basis, and keep accumulating if Bitcoin does come down and pushes Mara into this red area, I think it's a great idea to keep accumulating, because soon enough, with not just the positive earnings showing that Mara is very much not just invested in Bitcoin and buying more Bitcoin and holding on to more Bitcoin, but their productivity has been improving, and their hash rates improving. Again, other info is researchable on their investor relations website, but there's a lot of articles that give that information too that you can look up. Excuse me. So if you are in the same ballpark as me, where you believe that emotional selling emotional selling post to strong structures being proven, then it's just a super obvious sign to accumulate at these strong discounted levels. The low may be in. We may see a little bit more if Bitcoin tries to max out that area, but then soon enough, I strongly believe that we will be back, all my opinion, but we will be back trading once again at this ascending moving like line. And then Mara also does have an imbalance right here. There's a big gap that can act as a potential magnet, pulling it back up to 1365. And I think this happened post market. I believe it got filled post market. And then we also have another imbalance here that can push it up a little bit more, bringing it closer to this area right here. Soon enough, when Bitcoin starts to recover, just putting all this emotional selling in the past, get back to where it should be, up to the normal structures, and just continue doing its thing without outside influence, then we can start seeing this structure continue, and we can start seeing Mara trading soon enough back in this range, this fluctuation range that is in, using these imbalances up here as strong resistance, fluctuating. And I believe that it will work its way back up throughout March, and hopefully, if there's no more new tariffs, things begin to settle, we should be back and rolling as normal in April. So we'll see how it goes, guys. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.